Hello, everyone. I'm Anna. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast. I'm so happy. I've been dreaming of starting my own podcast for the longest time ever, and I'm finally recording it today. So, everyone, welcome. Before we start, I want to preference this whole thing by saying that English is not my first language, and I'm probably going to make some mistakes. So, I'm so sorry about that. I'll try to do my best and not make any, but if I do, please don't hate on me. You can correct me however you want in the comments, go ahead, but I will try to do my best and not make any stupid mistakes. So, anyways, I don't have any script for today. I'm just gonna go with the flow and see what's gonna happen. Let the chips fall where they may. Today I want to talk about, I guess today's topic is gonna be about a book I've just read recently. Well, not so recently, actually, maybe 6 months ago. Anyways, I read that during my winter break, and now it's June, so it's been a long time. But the thing about me is that, by the way, I have my laptop right here because I have some notes, just to keep everything in place. I'm gonna read some of them sometimes, so I hope that doesn't bother you. So the thing about me is that I can't just read a book and move on. Specifically, this book consumed my thoughts for months now, and I just have to talk about it. So the book is. Wait, let me bring it to y'all. The book is Babel by RF Kuang. It's such a massive book, and I can't believe I read all of that. And by the way, yes, it was my winter break, but still, I've read this book in 3 days. Could you believe that? Such a speed reader. So, a quick description of this book, I would say that Babel is a critique of dark academia and colonization, genuinely. So, it shows how corrupt institutions like Oxford exploit marginalized communities and how being a person of color in those institutions feels like a betrayal. So we follow the life of this student whose name is, let me check, I have such a bad memory. His name is Robin. I don't want to spoil anything for you in case you haven't read this. If you haven't read this book yet, pause this video, read it, and then come back. It's so good. You're not gonna have any regrets after you read this. I don't know. The thing about me is I hardly remember what happened in the book. I just remember how I felt while reading it. To be honest, it would have been less painful to shoot me in the chest point blank than to read this book again. I was sobbing in the end, and it was worth it. It was worth it. I would read it, like, I would have read it again. I don't know. It's just like, the thing about like those books is that you can read it again and again and again and point out something new every time. So while I was reading Babel, I actually find some parallels between Babel and Hunger Games. Hear me out. I would say that a big part of both of these books, I would say actually a whole synopsis of those books is revolution, led by teenagers. Well, actually, in Babel, they're 18, 19, so they are teenagers, yep. And revolutions are a big part of history in general, of any country, probably. Some of them you might even list right now, some of them you haven't heard about, but they're happening, they've been happening constantly throughout the whole history of human race. So I started thinking, how can you lead a revolution, and how can you succeed after the revolution had happened? How can you do that properly? And in Hunger Games, obviously, it all ends. I hope, the end. I mean, it's been what, 10 years since the first book's been published? I think even more than 10 years. So we all know that the revolution in Hunger Games was a successful revolution, and that Yep, it had some losses, but genuinely, they did a great job. I don't know. Actually, I don't know much about revolutions. I just think about it as I'm speaking. I don't have any political science degrees, by the way, so I'm just saying whatever I have on my mind. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt, please. And please fact check everything that I'm talking about because I don't want to misinform you. Yep. Okay, now that I don't have any responsibilities for the content that I'm providing, let's get started. I have some notes again, and I'm gonna read some of them. By the way, you can see a reflection in my glasses. Does it bother you? Should I take them off? Whoa, maybe that's better. Is it better? I hope it is. Anyways, so let's start with the definition of what revolution is. Revolution is the act of overthrowing one government in favor for a new government. Makes sense, right? The tyranny is the case with the capital in Hunger Games. This type of regime is one that repeatedly violates the human rights of large segments of its population. It's one that is extremely authoritarian. The same singular person or a small group of people hold the power and are unwilling to give up that power. We have this in Babel also, basically. So there is a number two. There must be a reasonable prospect that the revolution will succeed. Makes sense. If we all think we're gonna die, no one's gonna even try, right? That makes sense. The violence used by revolutionaries must be proportional to the goals of revolution. So what does it mean? Basically, sometimes the ends do not justify the means. I think about that in Babel, Robin and many of his friends, including his brother. Huge spoiler, by the way, if you haven't read that, be careful. Robin and many of his friends, except Letty and Victory, right? Many of his friends and his brother are dead. And all of that is just for the revolution to be successful. And we all think, what was it worth it? Because this book kinda has an open ending. So we don't really know if this revolution was successful. We know that in Hunger Games, the war stopped. Basically, the peaceful times had begun. By the way, I had this great quote by Plutarch. Let me read it for you. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. So, I think it's a quote from a movie because in the books, Plutarch says this by himself, but in the movie, he writes a letter to Katniss that someone reads to her. I don't remember who, but anyways. Katniss, maybe the country was shocked tonight by your arrow, but once again, I was not. You were exactly who I believed you were. I'm sorry so much burden fell on you. I know you'll never escape it, but if I had to put you through it again for this outcome, I would. The war is over. Well, we'll enter that sweet period where everyone agrees not to repeat their recent horrors. Of course, we're fickle, stupid beings with poor memories and a great gift for self-destruction. Although, who knows, maybe this time we'll learn. I mean, yeah. Mm, what can you what can you add to that? Not many things. So as we can see, they did a great job with ending the war and the sweet period has started. In Babel, we don't know actually what the result of revolution was. We know that Victory has survived. What is she gonna do? You know, she has all those stories to tell. But what's the next step? We don't really know. We can only suggest, I believe. So the next thing is consolidated leadership. Competition among the revolution between potential leaders. We can see that clearly in Hunger Games between Coin and Katniss, when Coin tried to kill Katniss because she saw her as a potential threat. And in Babel, I mean, the revolution is not as big in Babel. We're talking about revolution in sort of in the walls of Oxford, kinda. I mean, obviously, it will take bigger turns, but for now, it's a small revolution led by a small group of people, led by just students of Oxford. Whereas in Hunger Games, there's a whole society, a whole opposition with revolutionaries. So the next thing, if you want to succeed at your revolution, you need to achieve widespread participation. Everyone need to participate. You cannot let the revolution alone, which makes sense. And you also need to think, how do you compensate for having an inferior military in comparison to the tyrant? Those were my thoughts on revolution that I had while reading Babel. And I also have something that I want to talk about is RF Kuang is the master of parallels. And what killed me, absolutely destroyed me, is the parallels between Griffin's and Robin's friend group. So spoilers ahead, if you don't want to hear any of that, you should probably turn this video off actually, because I'm gonna spoil it for you. Sorry, not sorry. Anyways, so Evie and Letty ratted the friends out. I was shocked. I was shocked. They were so close to success, and then she just ratted them out. She just did that like nothing. I was shocked. And also, I was shocked that after all that happened, after they found out, that I was shocked with how much empathy Robin has after for Letty. After they found out that Letty like was kind of this like double agent, it says that the only thing he kept thinking about is how much he wanted to hug her. What do you mean, hug her? Oh my god. Okay, so Letty and Evie, Griffin and Robin, I mean, they're brothers and they're very similar, I would say. Victory and Anthony, they share a friendship over their race, you know. And I'm not sure about Sterling and Remy, but I guess they have some similarities too, you know, if you think about that. You just need to read this book. It's incredible. And the way she describes things and her footnotes, I loved Rebecca Kuang's footnotes. And I don't think they were written out of snobbery, as some might think, but rather from her desire to be clearly understood by her readers. As for me, I appreciate seeing a clear position. I like the lack of lyricism. Yes, the wealth of historical facts and linguistic problems really makes your brain work. I had to reread passages several times just to grasp the core idea. The point is, you have to study this book like a textbook. And I love it. I absolutely love it. After reading Babel, I started reading Poppy War. If you think Babel was bad, read Poppy War and then we'll talk. Because, you know, it's a story for another day. I can talk about Poppy War in another episode because this book absolutely destroyed me. And it was so graphic. It's so graphic. Check out, by the way, if you want to read Poppy War, check out all the warnings before you start because there are some graphic content. Be careful if you're sensitive. Okay, so as you read on, you grow more and more respectful of the author. There are no doubts that the author is educated. She is so smart. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, she actually went to Oxford. And not only Oxford, but also I think Yale and something else. I mean, she gathered those Ivy League certificates as Infinity Stones. I was shocked when I found out how many degrees this woman has. Among other things, the big topic in Babel is professors and teaching in general. And I had some thoughts on that part because we have some smart professors there who are willing to teach. They're part of intellectual society that has all the privileges. As we read, we understand that education is a privilege, and Robin knows that. And he's been trained for this specific institute since he was a kid. He didn't know any other he did not know any other life. He did not think of any other path for him. And In the end, I feel like he understands that his life might be a lot different if he had stayed in China. And he just it's about character development, I think, and I liked it. This part of the book, all the characters are well written. They're also unique and interesting and have a lot of character growth, which is great. I hate when throughout the book, the character does not change a single bit. Like, come on, like, think of something else. It's not that hard. Anyways. Anywho, I started thinking about that I have never had any good teachers, to be honest. Well, I had a few of them, I think. It was my art history teacher. She was a great woman. I still think about her a lot. When I graduated from my art school, we actually hugged. It meant a lot for me because I'm not teacher's pet at all. Teachers usually do not have any special treatment for me. I don't know why, but just it's how it's been. But this teacher and like my relationship with this specific teacher, they meant a lot to me. I don't know, she just inspired me a lot, and she was a smart woman. She knew how to teach. She knew how to make her subject interesting, and I respect that. But most of the teachers that I had, they were not only they did not know their subject, the subject of their teaching well, but they also were some terrible people, to be honest, who were sexist, racist, all those things. And I started thinking about why we don't have that many good teachers. I know many stories of my friends that they all of my friends at least once in their life had a problem with a teacher, and it was not their fault. About but I'm not only talking about teachers at schools. I'm also thinking of professors in colleges, and some of them are really terrible. Like, I had this teacher last semester. He was this old guy. He was, I don't know, like 70 years old, and he was teaching sculpture at my college. He's still teaching it, unfortunately. But we had him for a semester. We had him for a sculpture class, and he was terrible. All the time he was making these sexist jokes about my peers. That was horrible. With him, it was the first and and hopefully the last time I cried in front of a teacher, because he made me spiral. He made me have a mental breakdown in front of him. And I don't want to give in to that story too much. I don't want to share much details because that was terrible. I hope I'll never see him again because oh my god, this man. Anyways, so I think the point is that the teachers sometimes they do not have a goal of teaching. They don't care about it. And it makes you think, why do you decide to become a teacher if you don't intend on teaching kids something good, right? So I started writing, and it all came up to the fact that intellectuals are not in the government's best interest. Let me explain. So when we're talking about bad teachers, they are a logical outcome of this whole policy. If a state institution deliberately fosters intelligent people, it does so with a specific goal in mind, one that serves its own interest. In unstable times, it benefits the state to keep the population under control. The easiest way to do that is to keep people ignorant. I'm not talking about controlling the flow of information. I'm talking about making people incapable of thinking critically about the information they do receive. Sure, the internet can be restricted, but for a would-be empire, that is not a real solution, because in that case, even the least intelligent people will start protesting. After all, they suddenly won't be able to watch reels. In the end, some portion of population may be able to critically assess what's happening, but the majority simply does not see a problem. Why? That's exactly what RF Kuang writes about in Babel. Let me read you a quote. You've got a war of ideas, Remy frowned. What does the match pair do? That's a work in progress. We're still fiddling around with it. If we can just connect the semantic wrap with the right medium, we might get somewhere. But the point is, we can't achieve anything until more people understand where we're coming from. Most of the British don't understand there is a fight to be had at all. For them, the war is something imaginary, something that could only benefit them, something they don't have to look at or worry over. They don't know the cruelty involved or the continuing violence it will enable. They don't know what opium does to people. You won't get anywhere with that argument, said Robin. Why not? Because they don't care, said Robin. It's a war happening in a foreign land that they can't even imagine. It's too distant for them to see. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right? Even when the facts are staring at our faces, we still choose to ignore them. Why? Simply because the truth hurts. That's it. We just don't want to acknowledge everything that happens in the world. And it makes sense because you want to live this in this little pink bubble and see nothing outside of it. And I get that, but it's also not the right thing to do, and I hope we all understand that, right? So it's time for me to end this episode. I hope it made some sense. I'm so sorry for any mistakes that I've made. Yeah, bish bash bosh. It finally ended. I'm so happy that I recorded it. Even if it was bad, I spoke my mind and I hope it made sense. Literally, I hope I made sense. I don't know. I sometimes I think I'm so illiterate and I deeply apologize for that. Thank you for being here again. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening to my thoughts and stuff. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope I'll see you soon. Bye.